Well, good afternoon, everybody. Michael, Soothing here. I thought what we would do today is maybe take a look at a couple of maps. I don't know which ones I want to look at first, but these are maps from places where I used to live, and I thought maybe we could just look at them and I could talk about some of the places around there that I might have been and what that's like, things to do in that area and that kind of thing. I think maybe I'll do, well, Nevada and Utah are a little tough this time of year, because it's pretty hot there. It's all desert, But maybe we'll talk about that one. Crater Lake is closer to home now. This is a brochure, actually. Southern California, I used to live there. Grew up there until I was about 12 years old. Maybe I should start with that one and make this a series, and then next time we'll talk about Santa Cruz or something. And while I'm doing that, I told you in the next couple of videos I would continue trying the treats that my GF brought from the Philippines. So today I think I'll try these peanut bars. I'll try just one, since I have to keep the calories and sugar low. It looks like they're individually wrapped once you get the package open. Sure enough, they are individually wrapped. So I'll pull this out. Pop one out. I wonder if this says just how much. Dropped one. Clumsiness quotient. I can tell it's not America, a U.S. product, because there's nothing on here that tells the calories or the fat. But I can kind of assume by the shape and size. It can't be too high, so we'll open this. Then I will reorient the camera down to the map. And I will put it on the table. And we'll talk about places in Southern California, if I can remember any of those places. Let's try a bite of this. That's very good. You know those Halloween candies that have kind of a crunchy peanut filling inside, and it's got a hard candy shell? This tastes like the inside of that. It's yummy, but I can tell it's loaded with sugar and fat, so I will only have one. I was taught you can't talk with your mouth full, and that makes it hard to do Mukbang ASMR, right? Since that's the whole point of Mukbang. I've had requests to do some, and I will in the future, if I can find the right stuff to eat. Okay, so with that, let's move on and look at our map. I will reorient the camera so you can see it. Okay, everybody, now we've got our maps here. I'm not sure which one to start with. Monterey Peninsula and Salinas is a place I used to visit all the time when I lived in the Santa Cruz Mountains. We didn't go to Salinas much, That's where it's close to all the good growing areas for the crops they make in Santa Cruz County, like artichokes, and Gilroy's close to there. They grow, what do they grow in Gilroy? They grow a lot of garlic. But in the Salinas Valley, it's mostly lettuce and artichokes, strawberries, things like that. But what you really want to, where you really want to go, if you're going to go to this area, is you want to go to Monterey and Carmel. If you follow golf at all, of course, there's the famous Pebble Beach golf course, which is up here, and also Spanish Bay, the Spanish Bay golf course. Pebble Beach is this one, and it's beautiful. It's always really beautiful along the coast here, even in the winter time. It's quite nice. If you're going to Monterey, and by the way, if you go down the main highway down the coast, Highway 1, there's this drive called the 17-mile drive, and it goes through beautiful forest and hill country and then down along the ocean. Down here, goes through a canyon and then winds around by Pebble Beach, and all this along here is great little areas for waves and coves and things like that. Winds along, lots of places to park and have a picnic. Some of the most beautiful beach country and coastal country you'll see anywhere. And then it winds back up. You actually have to pay a little bit to go down here, unless you have a kind person in front of you at the gate, because it's a gated, big giant gated community. And some of the expensive multi-million-dollar homes here, if you have a person in front of you, they'll often tell the guard guy to let you in as their guest, so you don't have to pay the $4 or $5 it costs to go down in here to check out the golf course and everything. In Monterey, there's a lot of things to see and do. There's the Monterey Bay Marina here, the wharf area, lots of good seafood restaurants and shops and things like that. And if you go a little further up, you come to the Monterey Bay Aquarium, which is a highly renowned aquarium. It's up here at this end. Doesn't cost you to go down in here. And this big yellow patch is the Presidio, owned by the Navy or something. So it's a training area. It's actually owned by the Army. But it's a beautiful area. And there's also Cannery Row. And Cannery Row is down along here. John Steinbeck, the famous U.S. author, wrote a novel called Cannery Row, set back in the time when he lived here. And that's when there were all the sardine canneries here, because Monterey Bay used to be flooded with millions of sardines, but a lot of them got fished out, and anchovies. They got fished out, but they're making a comeback. Now all those sardine factories, canning, has been turned into a shopping complex, which is interesting to visit. I don't buy things in high-end kind of touristy stores because the prices are so high, of course, but this is all great stuff to take a date if you have somebody. Beautiful walkways along the beach here, things like that. And if you drive further down to Pacific Grove, you can drive right along the coastal cliffs here. Lots of beautiful places to pull over and walk. So Monterey, there's a lot of other things I could tell you about it, but it used to be one of our favorite destinations to go to for, a day trip, because it was only about an hour and a half from Santa Cruz or less. Big sand dune areas down here, and then all the growing areas are out there. Lots of cropland. But one of the most beautiful places, I think, in the entire country, not just the West Coast, is if you go a little further south on Highway 1, past Carmel. Well, you can go down into Carmel. First of all, we'll talk about that. It's an artist community, and so there's a lot of art studios and things down in here that are quite interesting. High-end stuff. Many multi-million-dollar homes through here too. Don't go there if you get envious of rich people, okay? But I don't get envious because I consider myself blessed. So why should I envy the rich? I don't care if they have money or not. You go down here, and there's some beautiful beaches, but what I was getting to is, if you go a little further south on Highway 1, you come to the Point Lobos State Preserve. And this is one of the most beautiful natural state parks you'll find anywhere. It's a wildlife preserve for fish, animals, whatever, birds. Beautiful pygmy forests, lots of great walking trails. And down here in Whalers Cove, for example, they have an original old cabin from the whaling days. Little museum cabin with artifacts in it from that time and photographs. This is a beautiful clear water cove where people do diving and stuff like that. You'll see them diving out there. But there are walking trails that go all along the coastal cliffs. And there's a giant bird island out here. There's some beautiful beaches, lots of tide pools, all preserved in natural state. Bird Island here, you can hike up to this great overlook that's a couple 100 feet up and see Bird Island, which is covered in hundreds of seabirds. And there's some natural caves. There's Emerald Cove. I think it's called China Cove. Yeah, right here by Bird Island. But it's got a beautiful emerald green because of the way it's situated. And it's really one of the most beautiful spots on Earth, I think. Not just in California or the West Coast. So don't miss Point Lobos State Preserve. Monterey has a racetrack, the Mazda Raceway too, that's out somewhere out here, way out here, and they do races out there of various types, including motorcycle racing. About once a year, all the racing bikes descend into town, but that's kind of noisy, and they run up and down the coast. if you go, here's a little inset, that if you go further down the coast, you would come to the Carmel Highlands, another area that's beautiful. And if you just continue south on Highway 1 off of our map, you'll come to the Big Sur coast, which is gorgeous cliffs overlooking, and you can whale watch and stuff there. We've seen whales off of here too. And I'm not talking about the kind in the tourist joints where people have eaten way too much. I'm talking about humpback whales and gray whales. So, if you're looking for a vacation destination spot in California that's not really ruined yet, I think Carmel and Monterey is the spot. We'll fold this up now and see if we have time to look at another map. What else should we do? San Jose, I got so tired of living there that I don't think we'll do that one. Oh, here's Crater Lake. This is in Oregon. Maybe we'll do this on another day. It's one of the deepest lakes on Earth. I believe it's the deepest lake in North America. And it tells you all about it, but we'll save that for another time. Maybe we'll do a whole video just on Crater Lake, because there's a lot of, and Oregon, that part of Oregon, there's a lot of interesting stuff to know about it, how it was formed and stuff, how deep it is, why it has the bluest blue water that you'll ever see. Pristine, clear water, but also extremely blue. San Jose, the Silicon Valley, I'll skip that for now. And probably skip Nevada and Utah, because that's almost a video in its own right. Nevada and Utah. So let's instead talk about Southern California a little bit. Oh, notice that in Southern California, there's a lot of graffiti problems, and I see that even extends to my map. See, there's writing all over it. You can see how old this map is. It's been in the car for, I don't know, a couple of decades or something. AAA map. I could really talk about this for hours, because I grew up in LA and I worked there quite a bit. And I know the spots down there. Look, there's Malibu, where all the celebrities live. Malibu Canyon up in here by the ocean. They don't like to live in the smoggy part of LA. But I'll just briefly discuss it, and then maybe we'll come back to this when I do the video on childhood and things like that. There's a lot of points of interest in LA. So many we can't go through them all. The movies that they make are in Burbank, the studios. And Burbank isn't really, this is like downtown LA, the tough parts of LA, or the industrial part of LA. But if you get further east, you get up here into Burbank, And that's where a lot of the movie studios are. And you can see the Hollywood Hills area. Let's see where Hollywood is. I'm looking for it. It's close by there. Here's Hollywood here. So you remember the famous Hollywood sign is up on the mountains up here. Here's a windy road that goes up there. Then downtown LA is close by, all this area. The tough parts of town that you see in all the gangsta movies and things is the Watts area down here and Compton. If you see movies like, what's that movie about the young black guy growing up in gang life? I can't remember. Some of you are going to tell me the one I'm forgetting, where they're kind of protecting their hood and that's it. Boys in the Hood. That's about the Compton area. Hawthorne's a tough area too. You get out here to Bellflower. In this area, there's poker casinos that I used to play poker at now and then when I worked down here. But where I was working, by the way, here's San Pedro. Kind of a tough town, but this is where all the cruise ships come and go out of the San Pedro harbor. And Long Beach also, that go down the coast to Mexico or up the coast of Alaska, things like that. Or cruises that go out to Hawaii. I used to work over here in Torrance a lot in the rocket science business, and there are many aerospace firms out here. There's Hughes Aircraft and lots of Lockheed and many missiles and space firms out there. So Boeing, various companies have divisions here in the Torrance area. What else can we tell you just at a glance without going through all the childhood memories? We used to go to the beaches that were down further here. Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, because we lived way out here in, not West Covina, we lived out here in Alhambra and Monterey Park and a little further east in Rosemead. Pretty good neighborhoods out there. So to go to the beach, we would often go down this way, find our way down to Newport Beach. There was if you go up this way, there's Seal Beach. And there are some amusement parks down along here. A couple of them have been closed. Pacific Ocean Park, for example. And if we wanted to get away to mountains and forest, we'd go way up here, not too far from home. We'd go up into this area, and you'd pass the San Gabriel Reservoir and keep going. There's a little lake called Crystal Lake where my dad and I used to fish for trout up there. And if you wanted a more beautiful lake, you would go further east to Big Bear Lake, which I think, it's not, I'm not seeing it here. I think it might be out of view, but it's down in that area. When you get out here, it's called Orange County out here. They used to grow all orange orchards out there. And so now it's mostly developed, of course. There are several million people that live in the LA basin. And believe it or not, it's not nearly as smoggy as it used to be. When I was a kid, you could barely see, sometimes in the summer, a block or so at the most. It was a thick haze that burned your eyes and throat, but that was before pollution control, before catalytic converters. So LA has so many interesting aspects besides being the birthplace of the movie industry. It was sort of the crossroads between the cowboy old Wild West and the modern industrial age. A lot of the ranchers and cowboys came here, like Wyatt Earp actually settled in LA at in his older part of life. As it started to become a big city, he would be one of the most famous guys that bridged the gap in years chronologically between, say, the Old West, Wild West, and the new industrial age, modern era. I believe his wife, what was her name, Rosie or something, lived to be 90-something years old here in LA. And he lived to be 80-something, I believe. So they settled here after all of his adventures in Tombstone and other wild cattle towns and his foray up to Alaska to try to find gold. But that's just a brief overview of some of the LA features, area features. But in the future, I'll talk about childhood memories and places we went in more detail when I do a sort of draw my life or type video. And so we might come back and refer to this map again. But for now, I will just say, don't ASMR and drive, everybody. Take care, and please thumb up if you enjoyed the video, and we'll do more in the future. All right?